Friends, let's study, investigate and practice the real words of the Buddha. Tonight we are going to study another very special discourse of the Buddha from the connected discourses of the Buddha. The name of the discourse is concentration, where the Buddha clearly said, if we have developed concentration, we can see things as they really are. Referring to what we can see as they really are, the Buddha said, we can see the 5 aggregates. We can see as they really are the 5 aggregates. Friends, as you all know well, the central teachings of the Buddha is the 4 noble truths. Of the 4 noble truths, the first one is unsatisfactoriness. The second is the cause of unsatisfactoriness. Third is the cessation of unsatisfactoriness. Fourth is the path leading to the cessation of unsatisfactoriness. When the Buddha explained the first truth, first aspect of truth, there are no 4 truths in the world, only one truth. That is dukkha. Dukkha, the Pali term dukkha. Dukkha means difficult to bear, difficult to hold it, unsatisfactory. This is the truth in the world. This truth is all over. Wherever beings in the world, in the universe, there is this truth of unsatisfactoriness. Referring to unsatisfactoriness, Buddha very clearly said unsatisfactoriness means 5 aggregates affected by clinging. 5 aggregates subject to clinging. That is what is called unsatisfactoriness. In Pali, the Buddha said, Pancha upadana khanda dukkha. 5 aggregates affected by clinging or subject to clinging. So if we have concentration in accordance with this particular discourse, what we are going to discuss tonight, concentration, according to this sutta, Buddha very clearly said, if one has developed concentration, one can see these 5 aggregates as they are, as they really are. Friends, first we have to understand what are the 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates means form aggregate, feeling aggregate, perception aggregates, volitional formation aggregates, and consciousness aggregate. These are the 5 aggregates. These five aggregates are all the time arising and passing in the six sense bases. As the Buddha very clearly said in the discourses, specifically in the discourse of analysis, in the connected discourses of the Buddha said, these five aggregates are manifestation of five aggregates and obtaining of six sense bases is called the birth of humans or birth of other beings. You see, all beings, wherever beings are in the universe, they all have five aggregates of clinging, five aggregates subject to clinging. All beings in all over the universe, they have this five aggregates subject to clinging. Whereas the Buddhas and the Arahants, enlightened ones, since they have cut off unsatisfactoriness, they have cut off clinging, they have no five aggregates subject to clinging. They have five aggregates. Theirs are called simply five aggregates, arising and passing in the six sense bases of them as well. Unfortunately, today, some people misunderstandingly say that five aggregates means this corporeality, this body, which is incorrect according to the original teachings of the Buddha. The problem is mainly they have misunderstood this body, this form, what you call the form and the form aggregates. These are two different things. Form, whatever the form material forms are formed with four elements: earth, water, fire and air. That is what is called form. But form aggregates, when you say form aggregate is different. Form aggregate is not formed with four elements. They are what you call derivatives. They are not born, they are manifesting. What is manifesting? When there are necessary conditions, things are manifesting. Things come to appear. They are not born, they are appearing, and when there are no necessary conditions, they are disappearing. That is why the term manifesting is used here. Manifestation of five aggregates and obtaining of the six sense bases is called birth. Manifesting. So, in this manner, we have to understand clearly the difference between the two, form and the form aggregates. In order to understand this, I would like to explain a little bit about the difference between the two, form and the form aggregate, from the great discourse of the elephant's footprint from middle length teachings of the Buddha. This discourse was delivered by Venerable Sariputta, where he said, friends, addressing his friends, other monks, he said, friends, when the space is enclosed with timber, vines, grass and clay, it is called house. That is what is called house. Just as in the same way, when space is enclosed in dependence on bones, tendons, muscles and skin, it is called form. Friends, that is what is called form. When the bones, tendons, sinews, muscles, flesh and skin, when these are gathered together, as the space is enclosed with that is what is called form. That means this body. That is what is called form. But it is not the form aggregate. This is what is called form. Now let's see the other thing, how Venerable Sariputta explained this form aggregate. Now, if internally the eye is intact, but externally forms do not come into range, nor is there a corresponding engagement, then there is no appearing of consciousness. This is referring to 6 sense bases, particularly referring to the eye, how these things interdependently exist in the eye. Internal eye is intact, no problem inside. Externally forms have not come to the range, and there is no corresponding engagement, then no consciousness arises in the eye. That is what he said. No appearance of consciousness. Then the second step, he says, if internally the eye is intact and externally forms come into range. Now the forms come into the range, but there is no corresponding engagement still. Then still there is no appearing of consciousness. That's the second step. Then the third step he points out. But when internally the eye is intact and externally forms come into range and there is a corresponding engagement, then there is the appearing of consciousness. That is how consciousness arises, and all these concomitant factors come together in the eye. The form, now he says the form, now referring to eye. This is referring to eye, not referring to body. The form of what has thus come into being, where? In the eye, is gathered under the form clinging aggregate. Form aggregate, that is how form aggregate arises in the eye, in the ear, in the nose, in the tongue, in the body and in the mind. That is the difference. So I guess it is clear to you now. The form aggregate is one thing, form is another. The Buddha used the Pali term Rupa and Rupa Khanda. Rupa means form, Rupa Khanda means form aggregates. That is what I wanted to explain you to understand the difference between form and form aggregates. Friends, let's now come to the discourse. This particular discourse, named concentration, from the connected discourses of the Buddha. Thus have I heard. That is what Venerable Ananda said at the first council. At Savatthi. At Savatthi means this was delivered by the Buddha while the Buddha was dwelling at Savatthi. There the Blessed One said this. This is the Buddha's exact word. Bhikkhus, wherever the Buddha delivered a discourse, he addressed the monks because monks were around him all the time. So, addressing the monks, the Buddha said, Bhikkhus, that is the term that the Buddha addressed the monks. Bhikkhus, develop concentration. That is the advice. Develop concentration. A bhikkhu, a practitioner, a meditator. Monk means, bhikkhu means not necessarily the monk. Whether monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, for all of us. Dhamma is for all of us. A meditator who is concentrated understands things as they really are. This is the Buddha's advice. Develop concentration. Whoever is developing, whoever is concentrated understands things as they really are. And what does he understand as it really is? The Buddha question. The origin and passing away of form. He can understand the origin, arising and passing. Origin and passing away of form. The origin and passing away of feeling. The origin and passing away of perception. The origin and passing away of volitional formations. The origin and passing away of consciousness. What are these? 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates. Origin and passing away of 5 aggregates. And what bhikkhus is the origin of form? Buddha question. What is the origin of feeling? What is the origin of perception? What is the origin of volitional formations? What is the origin of consciousness? Here bhikkhus, referring to origin. Buddha says, here one seeks delight. That is the problem. This is referring to the eye. In the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and the mind. Not referring to this corporeality, this body, but referring to 6 sense bases. These 5 aggregates are arising and passing in the 6 sense bases. So now the Buddha says, what is the origin of form? What is the origin of feeling? What is the origin of perception? What is the origin of volitional formation? And what is the origin of consciousness? One seeks delight. Delight is the problem. One seeks delight. In what? Delight in form. One welcomes. Welcomes what? Form. When you see the object, there is form. You delight it. Then you welcome it. Then you remain holding. Remained holding. That's the problem. What is it that one seeks delight in? And does one welcome? What does one remain holding? One seeks delight in form, welcomes it, and remains holding to it. So, three things. When you see the object, when you hear the object, when you smell the object, when you taste the object, when you touch the object as tangible, and when you think of the object, what happens? You cling to it, you delight in first, delight, and then you welcome and remain holding. That is the problem. As a consequence of this, delight arises. Delight in form is clinging. Delight leads to clinging. Delight in form is clinging. With one's clinging as a condition, existence comes to be. When you delight, you have clinging. Clinging. With that clinging, what happens? Clinging as condition, existence comes to be. Clinging is upadana. Upa means inside. Adana means you bring in. You bring in what? You bring in that particular form as delight. That is, you are bringing in and you deposit. You are depositing it. Depositing where? Depositing it in your volitional formation aggregate. With that depositing, whatever you have deposited is a cause. Whenever there is a cause, there are results. You are depositing the attachment as a cause. Once you deposit it, it is to be resulted. You have to reap the result of it. In order to reap the result, you have to be born somewhere. Where should you be born? There are 31 realms. In the realms, you are born again and again to reap the result of your deposited karma. What you have deposited are called sankhara or karma, volitional formations. Volitionally, you have deposited things. Whatever you have deposited, you are expected. You have to expect results. So when you have clinging as a condition, then existence comes to be. Bhava, existence means bhava. Existence comes to be. With existence as condition, what happened? You are born. You have to experience birth. With birth as condition, what happened? Aging and death, then sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair come to be. All this whole mass of suffering. Whole mass of suffering come to be. The Buddha said, such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. That is referring to form aggregate. Similarly, one seeks delight in feeling aggregate. What you see is the object. First you see the object or you hear the object. That is what is called form aggregate. What you seek as form, that you feel. What you feel, that you perceive. What you perceive, that you volitionally formed you evaluate, all these are detected by consciousness aggregate. That is how these 5 aggregates are working together. They are conjoined. They are intermingled in the 6 sense bases. As the result, we are clinging to 5 aggregates. When we cling to 5 aggregates, we are born again and again. We have to suffer again and again because 5 aggregates affected by clinging is suffering. This bhikkhus is the origin of form, the Buddha said. Origin of form. This is the origin of feeling. This is the origin of perception. This is the origin of volitional formations. This is the origin of consciousness. That is how the Buddha explained here the origination of the 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates subject to clinging. And then the Buddha said, what bhikkhus is the passing away of form? What is the passing away of feeling? What is the passing away of perception? What is the passing away of volitional formations? What is the passing away of consciousness? Means, what is the passing away of 5 aggregates? 5 aggregates affected by clinging, subject to clinging. Then the Buddha explained, here bhikkhus, one does not delight. You see, the arising, the origination is explained. It is because of delight. These 5 aggregates arise, come to be because of delight, because of attachment, because we welcome, because we remain holding. Now, its cessation is explained like this. One does not seek delight. One does not welcome. One does not remain holding. And what is it that one does not seek delight in? What does not one welcome? To what does not one remain holding? The Buddha question. One does not seek delight in form, does not welcome form, does not remain holding to it, to form. As a consequence of this, delight in form ceases. No arising. Delight in forms come to cease. That is the cessation. With the cessation of delight comes cessation of clinging. With cessation of clinging, cessation of existence. With the cessation of existence, the cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, cessation of death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, displeasure and despair. That is what is called cessation of dukkha. The Buddha said, such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. That is referring to the form. Similarly, the Buddha explained the feeling aggregate, subject to clinging, perception aggregate subject to clinging, volitional formation aggregate subject to clinging, and the consciousness aggregate subject to clinging. If we do not delight in feeling, perception, volitional formation and consciousness as well, if we do not delight, if we do not welcome, if we do not remain holding, then as a consequence of that comes to cessation. The cessation of feeling, cessation of perception, cessation of volitional formations, and the cessation of consciousness as well. But they said, such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. So friends, in this manner, the Buddha in this particular discourse very clearly said, in order to understand this nature, real nature of the five aggregate subject to clinging, which are arising and passing in the six sense bases, we have to have good concentration. We have to develop concentration. Without concentration, we cannot switch to insight. If you see these five aggregates subject to clinging as they really are, that is what is called insight. That is what is called vipassana. That is what is called wisdom. That is the teachings of the Buddha. Finally, in the discourse, Buddha said, this is the passing away of form, this is the passing away of feeling, this is the passing away of perception, this is the passing away of volitional formations, this is the passing away of consciousness. It's very clear. Buddha's word is very clear. Friends, let's all read again and again this wonderful teachings of the Buddha. Do our own exploration, investigation, and practice this Dhamma. Practice concentration, practice insight. That is the instruction of the Buddha. Let's all practice this Dhamma so that we can experience this wonderful teachings of the Buddha here in this very world. We can realize that real peace, real happiness of Nibbana here in this very world. May we all attain that supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.